Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show. And today we are going to be talking about how to build generational wealth. Now, Jim, this is something that's quite important to you. And if you caught us at the weekend, we were talking about obviously we don't have all the answers, especially not when it comes to this, because we're talking about, insurance, the right insurance policies and trusts in place and things as well. So it is kind of a learning together thing as well. So we don't always have all the answers, but it's good to go through things and look at the right avenues to follow to get the answers or speak to the right people. So generational wealth, one of these topics where you're still kind of implementing it in your own process. And if anybody's watching and it's something that they're obviously implementing and looking to do or have any information that might be useful, please join in and chip into the comments and things as well. We'll keep it interactive if we can.
It depends as well what you deem as generational wealth, because generational wealth sometimes isn't just about money. Now, let me give you an example of that, because
Yes.
I was actually watching Richard Branson last night and HBO special about him,
Mm-hmm.
about four episodes. I'm three in, and there's another a fourth one to go, and his
Yeah.
journey. But he talks about generational wealth, and he talks about I tell you what is a crime is actually going to your deathbed and leaving all your skill to go with you. So
Yeah.
everything you've learned, all the experiences you've had, all the wisdom you've gained, and everything like that actually goes with you when you die. You've taught no one anything. The next generation hasn't benefited from anything that you've done or anything that you've learned as a result. And as far as he's concerned, as far as I'm concerned, actually, I've always believed that it's a crime. It's
Yeah.
literally a crime to do that. To take all your knowledge with you, you've learned over all these years. The whole point is to allow the next generation to stand on the shoulders of giants. And now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we're giants, but the reality is, if we all elevated the next generation up and held them up with what we learned and passed it on to them as a result of that, then they would be a lot further ahead than us in terms of what they're doing. That's how most children today end up being in poverty for the rest of their life because no one's taught them anything. You know what happens next is everybody goes, I think you should go through all the hard knocks that I've gone through
Yeah.
myself. Hello?
And rather than carrying on from where their parents left off, that it's like a reset button and they're having to start all over again.
Yeah, they go back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
Think about that race. There's a great video online that actually amplifies this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a classic example about people from different backgrounds. The white privileged kid gets the
Yeah.
like 10 steps forward, and then other people are determined that a step forward or steps back depending on where they've come from and what their background is and who they are and what their cultural beliefs are, and also what position they are in terms of their socioeconomic position as well. And then it shows straight away that the very fact that none of us start from the same starting point.
Yeah.
We don't all start from the very beginning in a race at the same point in time. But it also teaches you as well is you can't piss and moan about this. You have to play the hand you've been dealt and make the best of what you've got, rather than actually just rolling over and moaning about it for the rest of your life. This is what
Yeah.
generational wealth is really all about. It's not about just money. It's about understanding where you are right now, learning from that. But it's also the people that are mentoring you, which typically is your parents, or
Yeah.
they're maybe not mentoring you, is helping you get further forward than them. If you're a parent, the thing that you should want most for your children right now is to be better off than you are. And I
Yeah.
don't mean have the better car, and I don't mean have the more flashy, bigger house. I mean, in terms of your wealth, which is your monetary aspect, not your income, it's your wealth of what you've got in order. In other words, can you retire tomorrow and never need to worry about money about ever again? If that is not the case, then that is not wealth. Wealth is what that is. Can you do you know what to do when anything goes wrong? Do you understand the process about what you need to do next if anything goes wrong? Who you need to speak to, and all these different things. These are all things that your parents have probably gone through, but they're not passing that knowledge and information on as a result. I took it for granted that most people knew how to work on a car, because that's how I was taught. I thought, well,
Yeah.
everybody just works on a car, do they know? The carburation, the alternator, the camshaft, the valves, and everything like
Because they
that.
double
And
matched a lot of people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And you ask most people work on a car nowadays, it's like, I have no idea what you're talking
Yeah.
about. And yet, I bet you their mothers or their fathers have actually worked on a car and they knew all that expert information, but they've never actually passed that knowledge and expertise on. That's
Yeah.
the kind of thing I'm talking about, generational wealth. It's not just
It's not all about
money.
the money. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
it's
what.
not. Well, believe it or not, it is all about the money, because the money will set you free ultimately. But it's everything you do in order to acquire that wealth and acquire that money is everything you've learned from everyone else round about you as a result of that. If you don't like where the youth of today are, it's your fault. Because when they were born, they weren't born with preconceptions about how to do everything, how the world was, and whether we had 3 or 4 different types of sexes. They never
Mhm.
acquired all that information. Where did they learn that from?
Yeah.
Us. Us. That's the only place they could have learned that from. Us. Not you personally, but us.
The people who are
Society.
raising them. Yeah.
Yeah, they've learned that from somewhere, and it can't just be they've thought it up on the spur of the moment. That you have to learn that from somewhere, and that's another way of generational wealth. Whether that's wealth or no is another story. Being passed on the knowledge and information and expertise in a certain field and wisdom as well.
That has to
That's
be
what
imparted
that's
on
what this
people.
is
Yeah.
all about.
Yeah, and that's what a big driver of this actually the show itself. That's the Wealth Creation Show. For you, Jim, a big driver was you thought, God, and you've got so much that goes on in your head and so much that you know and that you do, and it's like, but how are you ever going to get all that? And so this is kind of like a bank of knowledge as well for your benefit and indeed generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you're right as well. You touched on there about obviously we will talk about it as we go through the challenges of building generational wealth. And when I was researching this and putting together the pointers for talking about, it obviously talks about people's initial beginnings and whether they come from a privileged background or whether it's, you know, if they're poor or if they've got
Yeah.
financial backing, or and it also touched on about race and things as well. And you know, these are all different factors that are challenges of generational wealth from where you start off and what your starting point is. But
Mhm.
generational wealth in itself, so I mean, it refers to predominantly, I suppose, obviously assets passed down from one generation to the next. Building generational wealth can provide long-term financial security, opportunities for your children, your grandchildren, and beyond that, of course, as well. And as you say, Jim, this is more than just financial resources. Its value extends beyond the monetary aspect. It's also about imparting and enduring family values and wisdom and creating legacy and benefits that shape the lives of your generations to come.
Mhm.
Yeah. So today, we're going to try and learn a wee bit more about why generational wealth is important, how to lay foundations to build wealth for your family, and how to ensure that their legacy is passed down in probably the most efficient ways. Because obviously you get sidetracked and things could kind of snowball off. So we're going to try and cover as much as we can today, and it is an open discussion, guys. As I say, please, if you have anything that you want to join in, put it in the comments, and we'll try and get to that as we go. So let's talk about the actual importance of building generational wealth. And as we say, it's not all about the money, but achieving financial success. That takes a lot of work, Jim, and sacrifice and planning, and you've covered that in your own journey and the show and previous shows as well. But not only can it help you enjoy things in your lifetime, but it can also help your heirs or your obviously your children and your grandchildren benefit from your legacy and enjoy financial security and a lifestyle after you've gone without having to, like you say, reset button and start again.
Mhm.
Um, so for you, Jim, what's your views on, and what got you to the point where you thought, was there a light bulb moment when you thought, right, I'm going to think about passing this on and passing on this knowledge and passing on your obviously you've got your property portfolio and things as well. And when did you have a certain point in time, or has it always been something that you thought, this, I need to make sure this is passed on correctly and people know what to do when I'm not here?
I think these are things that you just acquire over time about the continuous pursuit of knowledge. But then you actually think to yourself, and I have thought about over the years, and I suppose it's other people round about you. You get round about, and then they start to talk about these things as well. And I think to myself, God, think about all that knowledge and information. It's just lost. I mean, I've seen it when when people I've known who they're not exactly peers, but they're people I know and I look up to, have actually then passed away, and I think to myself, all the knowledge is gone. It's just that's it.
Yeah.
It's gone. It just dies with them. And I think to myself, it's unbelievable. You know, the conversations you had. I mean, I remember having a conversation with George. Now, George was actually an actual Secret Service spy or something to that effect. He actually did wiretapping on people's phones. George, you wouldn't say boot a goose. You know, George wouldn't say boot a goose to anybody. He was really the typical mild mannered person, and he was. You would never know that. And then when you found out, it's like, wait a minute, George, you were a spy? It's like, sorry. It's like, what? You were? And then you think to yourself, it's like these stories. I think it's a lot to do with these stories and the stories that you think that these people could have told. And this is why people are doing a lot of podcasts now and getting all this information out, which is fantastic. But there's a lot of noise, white noise, I would say, in the ether there somewhere. But you've got to filter out all the right stuff that you're getting, and it does mean aligning with the right podcasts. But the information and knowledge and expertise that people have and they can pass on, which is literally just free of charge. I know it's no free because you're spending your time having to listen to it, but if it can be listened to in time which would otherwise be unproductive, in other words, if you're having a shower or having a bath or getting changed or getting up in the morning or driving in your car. I mean, the first thing I was taught was your car is a mobile university.
Yeah.
You should be listening to podcasts every single time you're in your car because that's unproductive time. And I can't remember, it was Bob Proctor that used to say, music is chewing gum for the mind.
Yeah.
It's like, or Zig Ziglar used to say that as well. Music's just chewing gum for the mind. It's just nonsense. It's like you don't learn anything from it. Yeah, but it's maybe a bit too far when he said that because it is quite smooth and relaxing for a lot of people, and it can be good triggers to allow people to build themselves up now and again and motivate themselves. But it's true. This is when you look at over the whole lifetime that I've been so far, I kind of think, I've just come to that conclusion. Up to this point in time, but it's a learning process, and the very fact is, it's like, it's taken me all that time to learn it. Where if somebody had actually worked this out well before me and actually got this in place and talked about this would have been an easier task. This would have been a lot easier. I would have learned this a lot quicker. Therefore, I would have thought to myself, yeah, this makes absolute sense. But maybe that's a lot to do with point of readiness. Maybe I just wasn't ready to hear that. Maybe it was all these people who run about me trying to impart their knowledge on me and share that knowledge with me. And as a result, I was going, well, what do you know? I get it from my kids right now. It's like, sorry? What do you mean, what do I know? It's like, really? Are you having a laugh? Are you talking to the right person? It's like, what do you know? You're just my dad. It's, that sort of thing. But I tell you what, it's mind blowing when you bring it into the context of, I mean, just people that Andy Harrington actually said this to me once, and I remember it. It's quite profound when he says it. There's at least 1,000 people in the world that would pay money to know what you know. Out of the billions of people, would you be able to find 1,000 people in the world that would pay money to know what you know? And I think the answer to that is yes. And it could be as simple as the fact that, how did you manage to become a financial director from a standing start, from homeless and unemployed? Because I want to be a financial director, so I could follow your path. See, it's as simple as that. How did you manage to become an accountant? Because I want to become an accountant, but I don't know where to start. How did you manage to become a property investor? Because I want to be a property investor, but I don't know where to start. How did you manage to buy a big portfolio? Because I don't know how to buy a portfolio of 30 properties, how that's done. So how did you manage to do that? Because I want to know that as well. See, it's all about what you want to know. But
Yeah.
everybody has that knowledge and information and expertise. How did you become a lettings director, Richard? These sort of questions, because I want to become a director of lettings as well, and a director of a company. So how do you do that? So everybody's got information out there that they can pass on. How did you become an alcoholic, and then how did you sober up and stop being an alcoholic? Because people would pay money for knowing that information. People that are alcoholics right now don't know how to stop. See all the knowledge and information and expertise and wisdom that everyone's got, and they don't realize how valuable that is to other people.
You see that a lot in America, and things. It's quite a common thing where people that have struggled with addiction and been through hard times and turned their life around are they utilize it as an income stream, because they go out as public speakers and speak to people and share their journey and how they turned around, and and use that motivation positively, and they make a living out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. See, so they make a living out of it, and that's fine. But there's other people that actually just do it, and they just do it out the goodness of their heart.
Yeah.
Just impart their knowledge and expertise for other people to learn as a result of that. I'll be honest, this is exactly what we're doing right now.
Yeah, in essence, yeah, of course it is.
And not everybody will get this. Not everybody will understand it, because it's not their point of readiness at this point in time. They're not in the position to understand what's going on round about them, because there's so much noise going on about in their life and other areas of their life. Therefore, they can't see it. You ever heard the expression, you can't see the forest for the trees?
Yeah.
That's what it is. They're blind. They don't see what's going on because everything's in front of them right now, and they don't see what's past that as a result of that. And this is what generational wealth is really all about. It's the current generation and the generations before making sure they can pass on the knowledge and information and expertise that they've learned to allow the next generation to accelerate there quicker.
Yeah, it's a good place, and we touched on it already, and and a lot of people will probably think the same. It's like, well, I've not had any of that wisdom passed on, or they feel like they're maybe just at a complete fresh, brand new start, but don't know how to start. And then obviously the challenges that they've had, maybe financially, or their social standing, or how people might have the question like, how do I get myself from here to there, or start on this journey? Building your generational wealth, and everybody's different. Everybody's come from different backgrounds. Like I say, obviously somebody maybe have a better financial back end from parents or whatever. Somebody might not have any at all. It might be a race thing, it might be a cultural thing. Do you know what I mean? There's lots of different factors, so everybody will be different from where their starting point's going to be.
And you've kind of hit the nail on the head there as well about generational wealth, about teaching the next generation exactly what they need to know. The next generation maybe need to know that there's certain things that you shouldn't let hold you back. For example, where you came from, what your ethnicity is, what your identity is. You shouldn't let that hold you back. But you notice in today's society, there's a lot of people that actually allow that to happen. They let that happen. You sometimes learn something and you kind of think to yourself, I wish I had known that this happens to everybody. Because then I would have been further forward right now, knowing what I knew. And I could maybe put a classic example of that as, let's talk about your body, your knees. When you get past 50 and stuff like that, your body starts to degrade. Let's be honest. What happens is nature tries to find out ways to kill you off. Because literally, as far as nature's concerned, when you get past 50-year-old, you're beyond your productive lifestyle anymore. And therefore, let's start killing them off. And that's why you've got things like the menopause. That's why you've got things like, all these different things that happen. That's nature's way of trying to, just kill you off because you're no longer productive anymore. As far as nature's concerned. So that's what all these things are put in place. But there's people that have learned all these lessons beforehand to live a longer, more productive life. And it's actually that information that other people need in order to help them go to overcome all these hurdles before they get there. In other words, people, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, this happens to me and that's happening to me, and it's like I'm going through all these different things, and they keep it all to themselves. I mean, this is two guys talking about the menopause, but let's talk about it, because I know I've been through it. My wife's been through it, and it's like, whoa. It's like, from my point of view, it's like, oh my God, scary. But it literally is a whole different thing for women. It's like, oh my God. But could you imagine? It's only they're now beginning to talk about it. You know, you've got people like Davina McCall and stuff like that talking about the menopause now, and they're saying, "Look, this is what happens. This is quite normal." And all the women in the world, in the country, are listening to Davina McCall, and they're going, "Holy shit! I never think that was like that for everybody."
Tell me this before?
I thought it was just me. And it's like, and now they're open to the revelation. It's like, oh my God, this means I can just go and get help there. I can go get help there. And that means this can all be resolved quite easily, rather than me having to suffer for the next 20 years, thinking it's just me. See what I mean about information, how it can be beneficial from other people's lesson that they've learned, to impart it for the next generation, so they can understand that information quicker and know what to do about it. That is what is generational wealth's all about, passing that knowledge and information on. And that's a great example of that exactly right now. And for guys as well, it's like, you know, the fact that I used to watch, I mean, I'm going to talk about toiletry habits again. It's like, but it's guys, it's like, when you get older, it's like, oh my God, I have to work out my travel based on the number of toilet stops so I can get on the way. Because everything just doesn't work as it used to work before. You could no longer stop mid-pee and stuff like that. It's like, you've just got to work it out, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm needing the toilet. How did I not know that? That's what happens when you get older with your body. But guys didn't talk about that either. I mean, I used to see some old guys standing at the urinal for about 20 years. It's like, are you not finished yet? It's like, I'm just hit and run. That's it, I'm off. And it's like, they just stand there for ages and ages and ages. And I thought, why the hell are they standing there for ages and ages and ages? And it was only when I got to this, I then realised why they're standing there for ages and ages and ages.
And if somebody had maybe made you aware of that, then you would know that oh, I've got that to come. And it's the same, like you say, with the menopause. If women are now aware of this and what to do and things, they could then speak to their daughters about it. So their daughters, when they get to that time in their life, won't be like, whoa, what's going on here? This isn't normal. Is this just me? Or
I suppose it's education. It's really it's education. It's education overall, and it's understanding that, and it's making sure that's imparted to the next generation, so it can benefit them as a result. Notice at this point in time, we've not really talked anything about money when we talk about generational wealth.
It's all about passing on knowledge. Yeah, definitely. But then people might think, right, okay, well, generational wealth, and if people that are watching now, obviously we predominantly talk a lot about property investing and things as well. People might think, well, but I'm trying to think about my financial side of things to leave for obviously my generations to come. But they're like, well, they might think, well, how am I going to start? How am I going to start there? I don't know where to start, and nobody showed me how to start. And then that's all about maybe building like a strong financial foundation for yourself. And you could start anywhere, Jim. And I think you'll testify to that fact, that you can start really anywhere. You just need to look at obviously your own situation in terms of maybe, I don't know if you've got savings or start saving, or having an emergency fund.
It really doesn't matter where you are at this point in time. I've known people that have been down and out on the street, that have picked themselves up, dusted themselves off, and built huge amounts of wealth as a result of that. You know, just monetary wealth, because they've just got themselves together. They've understood it. This happens to everybody, but they've then not had a pity party, and got other people to have a pity party with them and round about them. So they're all it's me, you know, sucking their thumb, and it's like, oh, why me? It's like, no, just get that out of your mind, and it's having the right mentors in order to get them better. I was so fortunate over 30 years ago to meet the right mentors at the time and be introduced to these people, because then they started to teach me all these things at the very beginning and teach me all the fact that, you know, and the fear that I had, and more or less they instilled that into me. Now you could say that's, oh my God, it's still fear into you. Well, it wasn't that. It was I'm still fearing to myself with the very fact that, you know, when I eventually had children, I mean, I think I had Tony at that time anyway, but Tony was extremely young at that time. I think she was still maybe 2 years old or something like that. But the fear of when Tony grows up, I will not be able to afford anything for her. At that point in time. So it was like, you know, for university education, for things like, you know, pensions, when all these things, it never happened at once, but it was just a realization over time that your children aren't going to be as well off as you are. I'll guarantee you that for a start. Because they're going to have to more or less fend for themselves, because the state isn't going to be in a position to look after anybody anymore. If you knew that, if you saw that coming, and the classic example about, you know, pissing your life up against the wall and just living for the weekend, and just you know, spending all your money as you have it every single day, thinking that when you get into your elderly years that somebody else is going to look after you, is a pretty naive conclusion.
Yeah.
And the fact that even and then even worse for your children coming to you later on and saying, look, I really want to go to university, and then you turning around and saying, I didn't really have enough money for you to go to university. I can't really afford that. Maybe you should just get a job like everybody else. You know, see what I mean? And then
Yeah.
them being exactly in the same position as you are, living from hand to mouth, with too much month at the end of the money. They've literally run out of money and they're not knowing what to do. I've been in the mire. I've been in there
Yeah.
already, and it's no great. You know, having to, you know, I smoked at that time, and it was like having to rake the ashtrays to see if you can find some dopes that you can get a roll up out of, because you had no money for cigarettes. Having to scrape the bottom of the barrel and raid your you know, your 2 penny jar that you were putting all your loose change in just to go out for a pint. It's, you know, that's not a great position to be in. Having to live on bloody crispy pancakes for the rest of your life because you couldn't afford anything else.
I have to say I like a
That's,
crispy pancake, but
but this crispy,
yeah.
it'll also kill you though. At the same
Yeah.
time, that, you know, eventually they'll catch up on you for that poor dietary requirement,
Yeah.
and eventually you'll probably die of cancer more than likely, because they're not that good for you.
Oh,
I
there's
think
there's something in the
highly
food.
ultra processed food, high ultra processed food is, let's be honest, it's carcinogenic. At
Yeah.
some point in time, it'll catch up with you, because it's like drinking arsenic every single day, a wee bit of it. At some point in time, it'll accumulate and you will die as a result of it.
Yeah.
And that's what we do every single day with our bodies when we're consuming, you know, highly
Processed
ultra
food.
processed
Yeah.
foods. Yeah, I mean, processed foods is all right. That's like what your mum used to make, the chutneys and the
Yeah.
jams and everything like that. You know, that's processed. You know, that's fine. But highly ultra processed foods is the stuff you buy at the supermarket, which is pre-packed food, and it's got
Yeah.
all the ingredients in it, the preservatives, the additives, and everything like that. You know, beware if you see anything that's like, you know, plant-based or
That's got a,
nature's goodness or something like that. This is just all crap. They're trying to smoke and mirrors to get
and
you to buy
things
the
that have
product.
got a really long shelf life as well. When I look at some things, I'm like, how could that still be okay at that date? And that's because it's got so much preservatives and things in it.
Of course it is. You see
Yeah.
vegan cheese. You can leave
Yeah.
vegan cheese outside forever. Vegan cheese you could leave outside forever, because I'm a vegan. You can leave that vegan cheese outside forever, and not one insect will go near it, and it'll never ever go off. It is literally just like eating plastic if you look at it like that. And that's the same with most highly ultra processed foods. You know, it tastes nice and it's nice as a one-off, and I have it as well. And it's nice with
Mhm.
your baked potato and your beans and all the rest of it, but not all the time.
Not
It's
all the
not
time.
good
Yeah.
for you. Again, this is generational wealth. This is passing knowledge and
Yeah.
information and all the rest of it on to the next generation. So we've talked about money. We're talking about health now. We're talking about knowledge and expertise and passing it on. These are all things that you've got to, if you learn quickly, you can adapt quickly to your current situation, and you will be in prime position later on to take advantage of any opportunities that come across as a natural result of what you're doing.
Yeah. I think I mean, it's just, and if you've got a family, and generational wealth and things is something that you're trying to obviously implement into your strategy, it's really important to involve your kids in your conversations, and not just about money, but also about just general things in life, and imparting that wisdom onto them so that they know when they embark on things on their own right.
Yeah.
And they're not having
So
to
when
then.
we get down to the brass tacks of the money aspect, this is why we need to start. This is why you need to start early. For anybody that has children, the day they are born, take out a pension for them.
Yeah.
Sorry? You get pensions straight away for children when you're born? Absolutely. You can get private pensions taken straight out. You're the trustee for the pension. You oversee it till they're 16 years old. But everybody can put money aside for them, like savings, and you know, when they get stuff, when they get money at Christmas, when they get
Right.
money at
Birthdays and
birthdays and
things,
stuff
yeah.
like that, when they get money when they're born, that could be put into a pension straight away, and up to the basic rate allowance. The government actually gives you the tax back for a child. For a
Mhm.
child. It's like, oh my God, I thought you had to wait till you started work or you were at 18 years old before you got a pension. No, you can start a pension anytime you want. You can start a pension for your children anytime you want. And the compounding effect is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
You're talking about when your children retire just on the basic 2,880 every single year you put in. When your children retire after 50 years of putting 2,880 into a pension, then they're literally going to be a multimillionaire on their retirement. Now, that means you could just put in less than that. But your aunties and uncles can all put money into that pension on behalf of your children at any time they like. So that's a really good one. And that gives them a solid financial foundation to build on later on.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't go according to plan when they're throughout their life,
They've
at
got
least
that
they've got
cover.
at least they're safe, and at least they're secure later on in life, and they could retire at 55 years onwards. So you're still allowed to retire 55 years onwards, regardless of what the government says at 67, because that's just the state pension, remember?
Yeah.
You can retire at 55 onwards anytime you like when you're 55 and you've got the adequate amount of money and adequate pension. So you can have great options here. It'd be brilliant to have the options. Could you imagine when you get to 55 and you'll still have your health, you'll still have your fitness if you looked after your body, by the way, and if you've constantly drank all the time and eating all the wrong crap and smoked and everything. If you've done that and you've looked after yourself, then you'll be in a position at 55-year-old to have a great lifestyle after that, especially if you have a pension. You don't need to work ever again. You could just volunteer and do everything, and you could travel the world if you want, if you've got the right amount of money. Because remember, what stops you from retiring? It's not age,
No.
it's money.
Yeah, it's enough money to survive.
If you had the money, you could retire at 20-year-old if you want, retire at 15-year-old if you want, and just never work again if you want. You could just do everything you want to do anytime you want to do it. So there's nothing stopping you except money. That's why I went back to saying everything really comes back to money. It's right up there with oxygen, by the way.
Yeah.
Because if you want anything done and you want anything done quickly, and because you're having to wait for stuff, then I tell you what, beating it to death with a bag of money sorts it all the time, more than likely. That's no Massey. That's Bill O'Brien.
I know. And
Anybody doesn't.
some people might disagree, but I agree that you're right.
Aye, most people will disagree. I'll be in poverty.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you that. Most people that disagree with what I'm saying right now will be struggling to make ends meet because they don't want to know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth then highlights the fact that what they failed to do as a result of what they're doing. This is a tough lesson to learn. This is tough love when it comes down to it. And if my future generations, my family are seeing this, this is tough love. Nobody's going to do it for you, by the way. You've got to get out there and do it yourself. So it's all about making sure you look after yourself, look after your body, and make sure you invest for the future. This is key here for a lot of people. I'll guarantee you, out of everybody listening to this and watching this, even later on as well, only 5% of you will do this ever. And the reason for that is because that's the way the world works. You've just got to decide if you're going to be in the 5%, I would say. So start prioritizing, start putting money aside, start prioritizing your wealth and your savings and all the rest of it, making sure you've got some money left over and enjoy yourself. It's no all like There's no like doom and gloom till you hit 55. It's lived on the poverty line, and it's like, oh no, we're going to no spend this, and it's like we're going to keep this and squirrel it away. And it's like because some people might get to 55 and that might be the end of them. You know, they might pop their clogs just by the way nature works. That's it, really. So these are all the things. These are all the things that happen to you as a result, and you just have to take them on board. But enjoy yourself while you're here. Definitely, I would say. Enjoy yourself while you're here, but look after yourself and plan for your future. Definitely, I would say. So prioritize your savings. Building emergency funds as well. I love emergency funds.
Yeah. You
Always
need
have
that
an emergency
fallback,
fund. You know, it's definitely, emergency funds are really important because you can dip into that when you need it. Classic example. I really need a break right now. I want to go on holiday. Have I got the money to do it? I have. But I think most people probably wouldn't have the money to do that, to go on a holiday at the drop of a hat. I think most people wouldn't have the option to do that because maybe they're tied into what they're doing. Maybe they're happy having a boss who tells them what to do every single day, and the fact that they can't do what they want to do when they want to do it. But it'd be nice to have that financial freedom and that financial security. So if you decide that you want to do something, then you go and do it as a result.
Yeah, an emergency fund is really important. For exactly what it says, in the event of an emergency, if something comes up and you need to pay for something. But it's also, and we spoke about this in the past, no one's ever got complete certainty. What if you were to lose your job tomorrow? Would you be able to survive for the next month or two? Do you have enough savings or emergency fund to keep you going? And if you've got a family and things, and the answer to that's no, then that's maybe not the best situation to be in.
If this is what I was always told by my mentors, if your income is based on your ability to perform, you're in trouble. Because I tell you what, at some point in time, you'll maybe get COVID and you're out of the game because you've maybe got it that bad. You'll maybe break your leg and you're required to drive for your work, so you can't do anything else because you're maybe a taxi driver, for example. Your income's wiped out. You'll maybe need your hands because you're a surgeon, and you end up cutting your hand, and it's a laceration, and therefore you can't perform surgery anymore. You're out the game. You're maybe a pilot, and it relies on you passing your health test every single time. And maybe that time you've not passed it because you're not healthy enough to fly. Your income is wiped out. It's over.
Yeah.
That's why emergency funds are so important.
Yeah. And the thing is, without your emergency fund, it then puts you in that position where if an emergency occurs or you lose your job or whatever, then that pushes you to end up being in debt to try and then survive. And then debt, and it could cause people maybe to sell up their investments and, make decisions like that, which then will leave them in a position where they maybe incur penalties on loans and things they can't pay back.
Yeah, I think avoiding debt
thing as well.
Avoiding debt, financial pitfalls, everything like that. That's the sort of things you want to do. You don't want to really take on too much debt. If you have got debt right now, you want to attack the ones with the highest interest rate to get rid of them, because that's obviously the ones that eaten into your wealth overall. Now, when I talk about wealth, maybe your wealth is a negative. Maybe you're negative 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000. But you can come back from that quite easily at some point in time. So that's the sort of things to do. You said it before, Richard, about involving money conversations with your children. I mean, I've tried to talk to my children. It's like try to talk to a brick wall sometimes. But they kind of know. They've got the gist there. I mean, they're saving money. They're putting money away in their pension. They've got the LISAs, the lifetime ISAs and stuff like that. They're doing the first home fund where you get X percentage after 5 years towards the purchase of your first house. They're no daft. It's like when I spoke to them, originally about, I want to go to Dundee University. I'm like, it's going to cost an absolute fortune. Would you know better just going to Fife College and just driving along there every single day? Because you could do the same course. It's like, I never thought about that. And it's like, that's what they did. So they didn't see the point of spending all that money and going living in digs just to do that if they can do it locally as well. And then you can take that money, you can invest that money, you can use it for something else. So it's starting that. And the classic example is how I first started as a child was Monopoly.
Yeah.
I got introduced to Monopoly and I wanted to be the king at playing Monopoly. And then I every single time. But the thing is, I never read the rules. It took me years to, and if I just read the bloody rules, I would have got there quicker. See what I mean about knowledge
Yeah.
and expertise? If I'd read the rules, I would have understood Monopoly quicker. I would have been successful at the game quicker, and I would have probably got involved in buy-to-let investment a lot quicker as well, because that's what spurred me on to do it, because I was understood completely. This was all about acquiring as much property as quickly as possible, and then starting charging everybody for rent, raising enough income, then buying even more property as a result, and then just keeping doing that. That is what Monopoly taught me.
Yeah.
So these sort of things are definitely, the things to go for. And then what happened next was investing in my education. I've spent well over 100,000. Well, actually, a lot more than even more than 100,000. Maybe 200,000 or 300,000 over the last 30 years in my education. I'm no short of going someplace. I mean, we went to, for example, in a estate agency, we went to America.
Yeah.
To learn from some of the best estate agents in America in the late 10s, 2009, 2010.
It was 2011.
And then I
Actually.
continued to do stuff like that as well, but obviously over to Paris to meet and spend the weekend with Keith Cunningham, Rich Dad, and then over Tony Robbins. We've been down there, Leaders Summit, UPW, Unleash the Power Within, several times for me. So all these different people, and then learn how to write books, learn how to public speak, thousands and thousands. I'm talking real thousands, tens of thousands to do all this. But I saw that as essential, because that acquisition of knowledge and information will help me accelerate my performance a lot quicker as a result of what I do. So I invested in the right things, but sometimes I invested in the wrong things and it never paid off. So it was a lesson not to do that again.
Which you could then pass on.
Simple as that. Yeah, don't do that, for God's sake, because I've done it and it doesn't work. So that's the most important thing. And then comes property investment, which is everybody wants to invest in property. Let's be honest. I mean, for even these people that can't invest in property want to invest in property. But what they do is they just want to get at everybody else that's investing in property because they can't. Let's be honest. All these people on living rent and stuff like that, all these platforms, all the all the tenant groups and everything, these people really want to invest in property, but they can't. And they just want to have a go at everybody else that does, just because it highlights their failure.
Which is a shame, because anybody can, as long as you know the right people to help you get a start.
Yeah, of course. I remember, I'm not going to have any political career out of this, by the way, because these sort of things will get cast up later on if I was ever a politician. But I'm not bothered. I am not owned and controlled by anybody. That's the other thing I wanted to be. I never wanted to be owned or controlled by anyone, and that meant financial freedom was essential. And so so you can become almost untouchable. And I don't mean in a criminal sense. I mean just in a financial sense, that the fact that nobody can pull your strings, because your money and your income is not based on what they do for you as a result of that. So that's why I got into property investment. But then again, it's all about creating and preserving assets and building wealth over a period of time. And that's why I started. So you start small and you just build up over time. There's so many people that jump into property investment. They go on a course for the first time ever, and they think they should be buying a portfolio of 10 or 20 properties straight away. And I'm like, are you delusional?
No, you need to start.
Because that ain't going to happen. And maybe you've got one person in the whole of Britain that's maybe been able to do that, and they hold that out on the course as the benchmark. But that's no possible. We've all got a different journey to follow and a different journey to take. And you have to play the hand you've been dealt with. If you've got no money and no resources, no wealth, you ain't buying a portfolio of 30 properties or 20 properties or 10 properties. No. You're scraping the bottom of the barrel until you could buy one property and do up all yourself, learn from that, buy the next property, do up all yourself, remortgage it out, do it again, remortgage it out, do it again. You're just going to have to go the hard school of knocks like everybody else went. But that's what people don't realize, is they give up, but they don't realize is all the successful property investors have done that. They've all trodden that path every single time. They've paid their dues. Newsflash, you're going to have to pay the price. Whoever's tuning in here, you are going to have to pay the price. And I don't know what that price is you're going to have to pay, but it's going to be hefty, more than likely. It ain't going to fall into your lap. You're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to be smart. You're going to have to team up with the right people. You're going to have to learn from everybody. You're going to have to grind like everybody else in what you're doing. It's not coming to you for nothing. You ain't buying 30 properties portfolio just because you've been on a course with some furu out there. It's just not going to happen for you. Just accept reality.
Yeah.
However, be prepared for the opportunity just in case it comes up. But just don't get delusions of grandeur. In other words, thinking it's all going to happen for you overnight. And if it doesn't happen for you overnight, oh my God, I'm a failure at this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and get a job. And I'm just going to work for someone else for the rest of my life.
Give up,
Just
yeah.
work for someone else for the rest of your life and do your side hustle anyway and build your property portfolio at the same time. That's what most people do. And some people take it to the nth degree, like I did, and allowed them to leave their job. So these are all the things. And this is all coming back to building the plan. You have to plan. You have to start somewhere. I got a bit of pen and paper, and I wrote on the pen and paper, if I buy one property, it's going to be this amount. Like at that time when I was buying property, it was 15 grand.
Yeah.
It's like 15 grand? What? And £10,000 for a property, a flat. But in today's terms, with the amount of income everybody earns, it's probably the same in real terms. If not, just probably actually a bigger price in real terms. Because you can buy flats still like 50 and 60 grand, 70 grand. But 30 years ago, they were 10 and 15 grand, and I was buying them for that. And I was getting, and then I worked out how much rent I'm going to get for this property on the bit of paper. And then I worked out, okay, that's what it'll give me every year. So how much I deposited I need to buy my 10 and 15 grand property? Well, at that time, I think it was 10% you were allowed away with. So it's like, okay, I wanted £1.5 grand profit. So if I make £1,000 that year in that property, I've got £1,000 left after my overheads, right? Now, 30% was assumed overhead. Notice how I have that model today, and it worked
Still got that,
perfectly.
yeah, on the spreadsheet.
30%. And then I do all the side hustles, so I minimize that. So I'm actually a higher margin. And therefore I go, okay, can I buy another property with that money I've just made out of this one? No, I've got to pay tax on it. Right, okay. So it might take me 2 years of that with that one property to get that next property for the deposit. So 2 years' time passes, I've made £2,000, and therefore what comes along is like, oh, I need 1,500 quid for my next property. So then I go and buy another property with that 1,500 quid I've made over the 2 years. So in 3 years' time, I've got 2 properties now. And then I've got £1,000 out of that one every year in profit. So now I've got £2,000 every year. Oh, wait a minute. The next year I could buy one more property. So next year, in year 4, I've got 3 properties now. No, I've got 3 properties. So year 4, I've got £1,000. So I've got £1,000. So I've got £3,000 coming. But property prices have moved up a bit, so I can only buy one property again. So the following year I buy another property. But see how I'm just acquiring them over time.
And it builds momentum, yeah.
I've still got my side hustle with my job. So I'm still living day to day, and I've still got a decent lifestyle because I've still got my side hustle, and this is working in the background. So when I started putting this and mapping this all out and doing that, I then worked out how many I would have after 20, 30 years or 50 years. And then I went, okay, how could I accelerate this quicker then? That's when I started to work out. That's the plan. That's when I started to work out, okay, can I get a deposit quicker? Wait a minute. I'm actually getting more money now because I've now gone from a trainee accountant to a section leader, to a supervisor, to a financial controller, to financial director. It's like, oh, I could leave my lifestyle exactly where I am right now, and I could just take that extra money and put it into buying more property. So I can accelerate this quicker. See how that works?
Yeah.
That's how you build a plan. And then you start to minimize things like your tax. You start to realize things on things like tax relief on personal contributions to. I'm doing it right now.
I just got to say, Jim, you do that, yeah.
Well, I've basically put the full allowance in this year, the 60 grand to my pension, because I want to take advantage of all these different things. And I've done it in different ways in terms of what I've done. But it's only because I'm coming towards the end of my, technically I could just draw my pension down now. But I kind of think I now want to build that as well as have my property portfolio. I just don't want to keep plowing it all into property, because if I plow it into property, I then have to pay a lot more tax on it.
Yeah.
Because I've got to take it out to put it in. If I put it into my pension, it's a nice tax efficient wrapper. So that's why I'm using my pension and personal contributions in order to do that. And then I start to optimize my investment choices. So it's thinking about the things that you want to do. Do I want to really change that onto a SaaS? Does a SaaS make sense? So it's things I've got to learn about still in the learning process in order to move on. I mean, if people have got their own pensions, they've got their workplace pensions, you should
You've got your workplace pensions as well. So
if you've got a workplace pension right now, look at the small print, because some employers actually match beyond the normal requirement is what you put in as to what they put in. Some employers do that as just a wee additional benefit, because they can get a tax benefit on it, and it actually keeps you with them as well, because you're getting good contributions. I actually bumped into somebody at work I was actually running with him in the Edinburgh Marathon as Scottish Widows, and he was talking about his pension, and he says, I was thinking about leaving Scottish Widows, and I said, so what's your pension contributions then? And he went, well, I'm putting in that. I says, what's Scottish Widows putting in? And he went, oh, 12% of my salary. And I went, sorry? 12%? It's like, what? And you're thinking about leaving Scottish Widows. So you're getting a cheap mortgage and you're getting 12% pension contribution from your employer. You're off your head.
No,
It's like, just take your money and do a side hustle with property at the same time and build a portfolio, get a letting agent to look after it, and make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah.
Why would you want to change that? The 5 things that are most disruptive, I know, I'll see if I can remember them: getting married, starting a new job, buying a house, divorce, and probably death or something like that, or separation. Well, that's divorce, isn't it?
Divorce.
But there's about 5 things that will make a difference in your life. And I tell you what, I don't know, but you want to minimize these ones as much as possible. Moving house and changing a job, 2 of the most, things that take most of your mind away. Don't move house till you can afford it, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But afford it as in time, and also if it's going to divert you from your ultimate goals, don't move house.
Yeah.
It's like, just stay where you are. The amount of people I've seen, and I've got, oh, for God's sake, I wouldn't be moving if I was you. You're off your head. It's like, what? You're an estate agent. You're supposed to want to sell my house.
But a lot of people will move because they want to, not because they need to.
Yeah, it's only because you move because you have to, not because you want to. I want a bigger house so I can show off to everybody else. I'll piss off. It's like, didn't be stupid. That's crazy talk. It's like, that's gonna cost you a fortune. That's going to be a huge mortgage that you're going to have, more than likely, because you ain't buying that for cash. And that's a huge liability that you've got to spend as a result of that. Don't, for God's sake, if you've got your plans on your financial future and actually retiring earlier, I'm not even saying retiring, I'm not expecting people to retire. I retired technically at 38, but I still continue to work because I love what I do. But I love it every single day, because I can just get up and say, tell you what, I just didn't want to work today.
Yeah.
I still earn money. But I've earned money in the time that we just spoke. I've not even done anything. It's like, it's all passive in terms of what we're doing. It's like, that's how powerful that is. So utilize all these things: tax advantages, workplace pensions, all these different things, your employer contributions. So check your employer's small print, because some employers will give you more beneficial benefit. Salary sacrifice. If I sacrifice some of my salary, well, you put that into my pension. I'll get a bigger pension as a result of that, because I'm coming near my end of my career. It's like, that could make sense for you. So these are all. But speak to professional advisors as a result of that. But I'll be honest, my take on speaking to professional advisors, here it is: you write down your net worth, and I'll write down my net worth, and if you're worth more than me, I'll listen to what you've got to say. That's effectively how I do things. If somebody comes to me as a professional advisor, it's right, unless it's specialist knowledge that I don't have, and I think I need to learn from you, and I need to learn what you're doing, and it makes sense to do that, then yes, I'll take your advice. But I'm not taking their advice. I'm actually just taking the knowledge and information, and I'm saying, okay, I'm giving myself my advice based on what I've learned from them. That's how I'm doing it with when I'm a financial person. So there's very few I don't really speak to a financial planner. I get people phoning them up, but yeah, it's no good. Just falls on deaf ears.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of thing you've got to think about as
So
we're nearing the end of this.
yeah, I
So
think as you've went through, obviously, from the beginnings and how you obviously build your own, obviously, financial journey and build your
yeah,
assets and go through that whole learning process. And then obviously, if you've got these assets and things, ultimately people are going to be asking, like, well, how do we pass these down? How do we pass down my generational wealth? How do we do it? And this is something that you've been exploring yourself, Jim, recently. About the right way to actually do that and the right way to leave your legacy and leave your assets and things so that they are not affected by anything else while you're not there, and they could still be passed down from not just your kids but your grandkids and things as well.
well, first of all, you've definitely got to do some sort of will, I would
Yeah.
say. We've got a will. We've also got power of attorney. In case
Hmm.
I'm up a mountain and there has to be decisions made, and I'm up a mountain and they have to go to the bank and sort things out, or
Yeah.
anything like that. So they've got power of attorney. The kids have a power of attorney for us as well, and it's in the safe. We've also got a will which obviously says everything goes to the children in 3 ways. But I
Yeah.
don't think that will's adequate enough. So I'll need to revise that now, because that was
Yeah.
done. So if you've not got a will, for God's sake, do it now.
Yeah.
Even though
Well,
you're
yeah.
about 30-year-old, if you've got children, or even if you've got a partner, you need to have a will, because I tell you
Yeah.
what, you'll be locked up in probate for ages trying to get this over the line if anything happens to you.
Yeah.
So it's you're actually doing everybody else an injustice if you don't have a will, no matter what age you are. So anything is better than nothing when it comes
Yeah.
to this. That's the very basic level. You can go more complex than that, and you can go into things like trusts, for example.
Hmm.
And I've still not worked out what trusts are in essence. Now, in accountancy and taxation, I learned about trusts when I was at college, studying my diploma in accountancy and my professional exams as well. And I know trusts are highly taxed at quite a high level, but there
Yeah.
are good investment vehicles, I know, in the face of it, if you get the right trusts, in order to pass on wealth, and it's not taking into account in inheritance tax then.
Yeah.
So if you have trusts, it doesn't get taken into account in inheritance tax, but they do have a hefty tax bill every single year as a result of what you do. Plus, I think there's something like after 150 years passes, the trust ends. But I've been assured that, well, I'd be dead, wouldn't I? But I've been assured that after 150 years, it just renews again and goes on to be the
Yeah.
trust again. But I've still probed that. I wouldn't like putting all my stuff in 150 years, then it all just stops
Yeah.
and
That would.
there's nothing there. Or does it get returned back to the people? Actually, the trust was were beneficiaries for. So these are all the things I've still got to work out myself and learn about the trusts.
I was just going to say that's an educational learning thing for you and anybody that's obviously
It's not a
not
public
familiar with
record thing too, and it's
it.
difficult to understand that. But I know I'm quite slyly, like, I look up people's accounts and I start to realise, people just as wealthy as me, if not more wealthy than me,
Yeah.
in the property sector, they've got LLPs and they've got companies involved in the LLPs as well as ownership. And I'm thinking, I
Right.
wonder why they're doing that. Limited liability partnerships, by the way.
Yeah.
I wonder why they're doing that. So I need to learn from these people. So at some point in time, I will touch base with them. I'm actually speaking to somebody this afternoon, John Howard. I'm going to meet up with him. We're going for lunch. John was on Property Elevator with Simon Zushi,
Yeah.
who is a developer. Now, John has bought and sold over 3,000 properties himself. So he's pretty knowledgeable in terms of that. So we're meeting up after this, hence the reason I'm speeding up in here and finishing off, because I need to get over and see him and take him for lunch. But he's up here from London.
Right.
He's got a site. I think it's 34 homes that I was looking at. He got them, and that's how I knew of him. So we're meeting up after this.
That'd be good.
Um, so it's all about learning these sort of things, because John's bound to have a great amount of knowledge as well and how to pass on his generational wealth, because he's not just going to leave it all and spend it all and no be tax efficient in terms of what he's doing. So once you've got your affairs in order and all the rest of it, you've got lines of communication with your family,
Yeah.
you need to kind of let everybody know what your plans are in terms of what you're doing. And I've just kind of started to think about that. And I'm just at that cusp where I'm thinking about that right now, about who do I need to sit down? If anything happens to me, do I need to get Tony to oversee this? Do I need to make sure she's trained? Because she's an accountant as well.
Yeah.
She's trained that way. So maybe she's the best person to actually sit down and say, this is what I do on a weekly basis. This is what I do on a daily basis. It's nothing encumbering. Just keep an eye on these KPIs, these figures, and you'll be quids in. It'll just run like it should do. And when you get to this point, maybe you should think about buying more property for the fund and building it up like that over a period of time, and not actually taking all the money out at once, because then it's taxable, and how to take it out tax efficiently with dividend income between you and your two brothers, that sort of thing. And then when another set of family comes along and they're passing along, hopefully that knowledge and information and expertise will pass to them as well as a natural result. So the bottom line, first generation wealth builder, committing to those first steps, saving money, build the emergency fund, start to invest for the long term, follow through with consistency, it'll eventually pay off.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of sacrifice, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of work, takes a lot of information, takes a lot of continuous learning. But over a period of your lifetime, I have noticed everybody that started 20 years ago in anything have now become super wealthy 20 years later, because they stuck at it and they left it as their core business, their specialization, whatever that is. You'll see that every single time. Everybody has done 20 years in the same thing, has become so successful at what they're doing because they've made it their specialization, just like an athlete does and trains every single day for that. So pass on these knowledge and insight to your grandchildren and everything. Key takeaways. Richard, I am away. I'll leave you with the key takeaways to talk about that. And thank you to everybody else for tuning in.
Have a good meeting.
Richard's going to finish off. And bye-bye for now from me.
That's great, Jim. Yeah, key takeaways for today, guys. I think obviously the generational wealth really refers to passing down your assets from one generation to the next. And before you could build your generational wealth, start creating that real strong financial foundation, prioritizing your saving, growing your emergency fund, and thinking about your future plans as well. So, I mean, generational wealth can provide really long-term financial security, and it can open up all the opportunities that we've covered today for your children and your grandchildren and beyond that as well. Strategies for building generational wealth include obviously investing in education. Jim spoke a lot about how much he has put into his own education. So yeah, invest in education, have the financial markets like property and real estate and things, and create and preserve the assets that you put into your financial vehicles. And that way you could be really ensured that for the future, they're going to be there for the generations to come. Maximize your tax benefits, avoid the debt, and it's crucial for building generational wealth that you do all these things. And hopefully that what we've covered today has given some of you a really good insight into what building generational wealth is. As we've said, obviously, some aspects like the trusts and things like that as well, we don't have all the answers, and it's still an educational thing for even Jim himself and of course me. Anybody that has any information on trusts and things, that would be quite interesting. But as for today's show, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Any questions, jump into comments. You can also come to me direct, and we will be back next Monday, 12:30 as usual, for the Wealth Creation Show, and I'll catch you all then. Right, guys, see you later.